Hi guys, welcome to June. New release is coming out momentarily, next day or so. We have got a lot of changes, or not changes, enhancements and such. Nothing really earth-shattering. Really some legacy requests that we're just working our way through. And so far, it's still early, of course, but we're not aware of any crash conditions in this version. Don't expect there to be too many things that could cause a crash, but you never know. Actually, now that I say that, there are a couple of big changes regarding the plumbing behind xLights, so we'll address those when we get to it. So we're going to start at the bottom here. Let me just bring up my xLights. There we go. Bring it up here. There was a issue with the wave effect. If you had the number of waves really small, like one or something like that, it caused a truncation error or a truncation down to zero. So in fact, the wave never actually moved. It was just the speed was supposed to slowly move, but didn't actually move. So we addressed that little rounding error. So now the wave actually moves when it's supposed to. So that's the first issue there. I wonder if I can zoom this in a bit here. Here we go. Let me zoom that in. And okay, Keith added a fix so when you download a model, i.e., if you're coming to the layout using the download and you're downloading a model, if you have a ruler is something you put in your 3D layout so that you can get scaling according to the ruler. It would honor those dimensions that are in the model prop. So if you had a model prop that was 48 inches by 48 inches, it would put that in your display as 48 inches by 48 inches relative to whatever your ruler is set up for. All right, so we won't really show that. Part of that change as well is including those dimensions so that when a Coro vendor decides to put in a prop, and this particular layout doesn't have much, but if it has a prop and you export the model with the export xLights model, it's a custom model, it'll store those dimensions in it as well. So that's what we're expecting to see. Um, Preferences for Bell. This one's kind of quirky, but for the people who have a slower machines, yes, us all our PC guys, sometimes we like to have a bell to wake us up and say, "Hey, the render's over." But for the Mac guys, their render is so fast they don't need it. But we have anyway, you have the ability now to turn on the bell or turn off the bell. There it is, bell on render completion. So you can disable it or enable it here on the bottom tab. All right. Centering of multiline XL font text. So let's go and create a new sequence, animation, and wait for that. And if we drop a text effect on our matrix, bring that across, bring my text. I'm going to make this a little smaller here. Okay, just a thing that maybe some people haven't realized. But when it says use OS fonts, then this font becomes active. If you use any of these other options, we call those the xLights fonts because they're built in. All right, so let me just choose 5 by 5 thin, say one line. We can see that. But you have the option to make two lines by doing a \n and line 2. All right. So now you have the ability, now it actually will automatically center it for you. Before it used to move things around based on the fact that this \n was in the length. So it's been corrected to actually properly center those two lines. Pretty simple change there. Add check sequence for a moving head group that's not defined correctly. How can I show this? This is just in check sequence, so it'd be a tools check sequence. I'm not going to be able to show you that error, but if you had a moving head group, and I'm going to say, let me quickly change to my QA group here. There we go. Click that guy, select folder, discard changes. Probably should have been there in the first place, but I apologize. All right, so go to the layout. I have moving heads correct. In the group of moving heads, I'm sure I've got one. There it is. Moving heads. So it's obviously we have moving heads 1 and 2. I probably have more than that. And oops, we had dash and let's whatever. I'll put in a couple more anyway. So what it's going to do is check every moving head here is 1 through 4, correct? So if I go to my layout and I go to moving head, I'm going to go to moving head 2 just because that's to prove it to you. Moving head 2. If I've got it set to moving head 1, it's going to flag it because you forgot to change to the proper moving head, right? So if they're all set to moving head 1, that probably means you've made a mistake. That's what check sequence is for. It's to find these little oopsies, and you're probably it's gonna flag and say, hey, your group contains all moving head 1, so there's probably a mistake there. So that'll be flagged now. The submodel window, if you had a very large submodel, so we're talking about going to um, let's go. Oh, let's go there. Let's assume there's something there. Moving heads. Now, if you had a very large set of lines here for some of these bigger props, the OK and the cancel button would fall off the bottom of the screen and you wouldn't be able to get to it. So we've corrected that so that you can get to it won't exceed your size of your window and it'll end up with a scroll bar in there. Okay, so it doesn't fall off the end of the screen. All right. Scott has added a warning for when you create an ESEQ. The ESEQ is often created for background sequences. And what we found was some people might create a 20 millisecond um, background sequence and you have a 50 millisecond main sequence. And then the timing was off because when they go to play it, they both get played at the same time. So one thing we found, and I'm going to show you this. And if I put an on effect, it's got to be on a model. Can't create background effects on anything other than models. So scroll down. Boy, I've got a lot of groups here. Here we go. Click on. And when you right click, model, render and export, you have the ability to create an ESCQ. This top line here, subsequence, that's a version 1 ESEQ, and it can only be 50 milliseconds. This one here can be either or depending on what your sequence was created as. So there's no reason to use the subsequence one. Use the compressed. It's actually a version 2 of the ESEQ, so there's no reason to use the other one. Just use the compressed version. Therefore, it can handle the proper frames per second that you are expecting to see. Okay. Scott did some code cleanup stuff behind the scenes. I can't really demo that. And Dan did similarly. Dan did some code to help the vendors when it comes to the downloaded models, right, from our vendors. And thank you, vendors, for supporting xLights. So he's made some corrections or just gave a little more how-to so that the vendors can understand how to fill out the information for the model downloads. Um, Correctly show the default face placement. So on faces, if I go to this guy here and I go to faces, I click on this. By default, it was showing centered as the image placement, but in fact, it was scaled. So you didn't. If I say add test, I think this will demonstrate what I'm talking about. And I guess it doesn't, but it wasn't correctly showing you the scaled versus centered, so you were mistakenly thinking it was one over the other. So now it will correctly show you what the default one was. So in my case here, it's centered. Okay. Um, Handle 3D printing of the mesh. So we found that this is even though I can see my house here and it's solid in my display, when you actually printed it, it showed like it was see-through. So you could the walls weren't really walls and such. So when if I did a right click and print layout image, the image of the house or the mesh was incorrect. So we correctly handled that. Jason has added the Solo to Go controller. So that would be over on the controllers tab. And if we click on one of these, I'm assuming it's going to be something in here. Controllers to go. It might be under one of the other subgroups. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but somewhere in there. Um, Add a right-click reset zoom level. So one of the things maybe people didn't realize, but if you're up in this timeline here, if I go, let me click, if I zoom in, stop. And if I zoom in, all right, I'm zoomed in quite a bit. If you're up in this timeline, you can now right click and reset the zoom level so you get back to getting the 30 seconds. It always tries to space it out to in even chunks, so you will get a little bit of extra over here, and that's what it's called resetting the zoom level. I'm gonna see if I can figure out if I go like this and I go right click zoom to selected. I'm gonna zoom into that 12 seconds, whatever I had selected. It's playing now, but right click. Reset to zoom. There you go. You can also set probably a hotkey or a key binding, so you can make a key do that for you. Add text labels as a timing track creation. So when you right click, add a timing track, you have your options here. If I go to metronome with tags and click OK, there we go. We've added this third drop down here. I'll just make it a little bigger. And I could say, like the example says, up, down, comma, left, comma, right. And all the other things happen as well. You can make them random. And I wanted to do every 2000, so every 2 seconds, click OK. And I get right, left, up, right, left. As you'll see, totally random. So this is good for props where you have states and you want to mix up what's going on in the states. Okay, so that's the new option that was added there. Fixed EFL vendor. That was there was something broken on the downloads for EFL, so Keith jumped in on that. Keith did it or Dan did it? One of the two did it anyway. I think it was Dan actually. Sorry about that. Add pixel size to FPP virtual display map. I'm not sure what that is specifically. I think it's on when you create a virtual matrix on your display, and when you export that over to FPP to use a virtual display, it correctly puts the pixel size. Pixel size comes from the bottom here under, I think it's an appearance. So pixel size. It's going to grab that value and use that when it creates the virtual display on the other side. All right. Scott's done some behind the scenes work to update the Xlate so it runs on Fedora. That's a Linux variant. And he's also been working with Joe Hinkle on the HinksPix upload because I believe Joe has made some changes on his side and Scott made the corresponding changes in xLights. Added a blink length to the face effect. So this is another optional setting. If I go to face effect and drop in face effect on my mega tree, there we go. There is good old the weekend. Click that guy open. And this is totally optional if you want to make changes to it. But we had a eye blink frequency of, how often does it blink? He only blinks usually when it's when there's a space in the timing track. And that's normally when xLights would make it blink. Of course, it should be a proper lyrics time track here, and I'm just demonstrating this part. So we added, but now we've added a duration. So normal would be what it currently is, and I believe it is a 100 milliseconds, so roughly a 2-frame blink. Now you can make it a 1 frame blink, so it's a really short duration blink, or you can make him hold his eyes down a little longer or a little longer yet. So for some props, it looks more realistic by slowing down the how often the blink. You don't get this rapid lights going on and off as they're blinking their eyes. It's a more distinct version. Okay. This was a change. We added a preference a year or two ago where it linked the save button. So we're talking about linking this button here, save, and over on the controllers tab. When you click the save on the one, there was a preference in place that said also save in there. So we've taken away the preference and we're just doing it for you. There's no reason not to do it. When you're saving changes on the properties here, you really want to change the controller at the same time. So we've taken away that preference and just hard coded it. Mark B brought a point. We had an issue with the Chroma Key. And if I show you that, basically we're talking about the Chroma Key here. So what Chroma Key does is anytime it sees a certain color, it basically makes it transparent so the object shows behind it. So we had a demo, and I can't really demo it here, but I'll show you what basically the layout was. He had a video that had a curtain in it, and he wanted to open the curtain and reveal what was behind the curtain. So he had a specific video that was done where the opening was green, which is your typical green screen, and he had a layer below it, and for demonstration purposes he had just an on effect. And let me change it to white. Well, it's okay, it's white. So when the curtain opened, it should have revealed the white if you had the chroma key set up. So normally you would have chroma key and you would choose the green color because that's typically what they use for chroma keys, and you'd put up the tolerance quite high. So the green was supposed to replace and show the white. Well, there was an issue, basically legacy over from about 25.03 where that was broken. So we fixed that. Um, they've added a new controller, the Bong 69. Can't really talk too much about that. And Dan did a little bit of more plumbing on the controller. I believe it has something to do with variants of his Culp controllers, just making it a little cleaner. So when you're in the controller tab, you could pick out um, the controller, and it would learn the legacy and learn the properties from the underlying controller, basically, because it's just a variant of one. So you don't need to redo all the properties as a developer. You don't need to do all the properties. Polyline's not running flat in the model preview. So what is this one here? So if I have my layout and I draw a polyline and you draw it across there, and let's see if I can demonstrate, hit escape to exit out of that. And if I go to the sequencer and I'm going to go edit display elements, and I added a polyline, there it is, adding it to my display. Scroll down, it's probably at the bottom. It is. And I drop an on effect here. It shows as a horizontal line, as you'd expect. What was happening was it would show as a 45-degree line, even though in the layout it looked to you like it was horizontal. Now there is a quirk that if you do put a twist on this and do a little bit of an angle here, it will show 45 degrees. So that's expected. But if it's flat or near flat, it will now show flat in the model layout. So just a minor tweak there. Again, something that's been an outstanding issue for a couple of years, but it was basic. We're just getting through to them now. Crash on the dot. Hopefully we've got this address. It's sort of fix one, break another on this one. If you're in and I say add a new controller here, add Ethernet. There was an issue on the Mac. It would crash or it would hang up. So they fixed it on the Mac, but it broke the Windows, and now we're trying to fix it on both. So normally, a lot of times you just hit the drop down and pick, but you also have the option to just hit the letter. So I'm going to hit the letter F, and it finds the first F vendor. So that's working. And before it would crash on the PC version last in 2505. It crashed. So we've got that fixed up. All right. Retain spacing on copying states. So if you have states on a prop, and I just tell you what I'm looking at here. These are things that most mappers, we call xLights users that basically just purchase sequences and map, you're not likely to see these things. But for people that are doing creating states and such, advanced xLights folks, these sort of things they run into, and we're trying to address them. So if you had states here, and you might add force custom colors, and I'm just gonna say one, and I go two, two. So when one is in the timing track, these nodes will light up a certain color. I'm just going to say 1 to 10, and this one is 30 to 35. I don't know, and I want it to show up, and show up as red. I don't even know if that's not really red, but whatever. Click on that, click on that. Anyway, so this space here, when you went to copy it from this state to another one, it would not retain this space. So, it just kind of looked ugly. So we're now doing, when we copy it, we're going to retain the space. And it doesn't let me say okay because there are some invalid states. So let me go and put 1 to 10 here and 30 to 35. So people that don't know anything about states, what this means is that when the state is a 1, it will show these colors. And when the state is a 2, it would show these colors. So you can use a timing track to flip these colors to these colors, these colors. That's what a state does. It says, in this state, it'll be these colors. In this state, it'll be these colors. So the fix was to retain this extra space. Not earth-shattering. It was just nice to have. And doo-doo-doo-doo. All right. G Strike, I think I want to say George, but I can't, I don't know what that's really his name. G Strike added a color palette to the candle effect. So if I go to the sequencer, and I'm going to go to my matrices because it's easier. And you drop on a candle effect. Candle effect has always been known to be different hues of a flame, right? But now we have a use palette check mark. So if I click that, now it's going to use the options that you have set over here. If you have only one color selected, it's going to be white and black. If you have two colors selected, it's going to switch between, it's going to flicker between two colors. So maybe I have a blue. So it's going to be a white and blue. And maybe if I go and choose a different blue, a lighter blue, and now you're going to basically flicker, or you're going to slowly morph from that to the other. And that's what you get when you do this option with the use palette. It's going to use those two colors that you select. All right. If you have one, it's going to be, the other one's going to be assumed to be black. It's only two colors. Redo to the menu. So there's redo and there's undo, which we all know. So if I make some changes here, hopefully I get it right. I've made some changes. If you right click on this, you can see if I do an undo, it's going to undo the change that I just did, the modify. So if I look up there in the edit, you now have an undo and a redo. And redo means reapply the change. So if we undo the effect, so we moved it now. When I did that, I accidentally moved it. So I'm going to undo the move. There, I've done that. Now, if I want to redo it, I want to move it back. You have the option to redo it. You also have the option up here to redo it. It's a Control Y, and I believe we've also added a Control Shift Z, Control Shift Z, if you will, which are some standard combinations for a redo. So if I right click and redo, you're going to see it's going to move it back. So you can, if you undo too much, you can perhaps roll it forward. Now, xLights isn't a word processing program. It doesn't have the ability to redo and undo every possible thing that you've done in xLights. We've only been able to capture certain things like layout moves, effect moves, effect changes, but by no means do we capture every single possibility that you may have done in xLights and have the ability to redo it or undo it. So just keep that in mind. There are some limitations, okay? Add option to import okay, so add an option to add an empty group during an effect import. Now, it's no more than what it said there. It's adding an empty group. That's all it's doing. So if I was to go to import effects, and I'm just going to pick a random sequence. Normally, you would pick it from a .zip file, but often you'll have a case where you're importing from a vendor and they've got all these groups that you don't have. You're looking down your list. I don't have an all group minus pixel forest. Well, before you would have to save your mapping, exit out, et cetera, et cetera. But now you have the able to right click, add an empty group. You can just call it empty group if you want, but maybe it's an all group, no pixel forest. So this is really no more than a placeholder. It's going to take a moment here, so give it a time to go through it, and it's going to add that group. It's just an empty group. Remember, you're going to have to do some work afterwards if you actually want to use it. And it's probably, well, it's going to be in alphabetical order. So where did it go? All group, no playfield. Notice it's blue. That means it's a group. Now I'm just going to drag that down there just for the sake of dragging it down there, which you don't need to. So that's going to be a group that you're going to want to go back after the fact and populate that group with the objects you want. Or maybe it's going to be a placeholder. Maybe you want to create a group of candy canes that you're going to purchase next year or later for next season, but you want to map them now and you just want to leave them empty for now until you actually buy the props. So there's no harm in doing that. You can use them as placeholders until you decide what you want to do with it. All right. So that's just adding an empty group. There is no option to add a new model because we're going to assume that you know which models you have. You're not just going to randomly throw models in here. So if you want to create models, you're going to have to come out of this dialog, create the models, and put them back in. There's just no way to easily create all of the layout abilities in the import tool. Okay. Um, hmm, bad typing on my part. Scale multi-string shadow models in checks. The kill. Oh, I think I meant that. Okay, so I think I meant to say don't show multi-string shadow models in check sequence. That's what I really meant. I don't know what I was typing there. So word correction got me. So what happens on many layouts now that everybody's getting moving heads, you end up creating these groups called MH dimmers, MH shutters, etc. So let me just see if I've got some here. I think I do. MH tilt, yeah, pan, dimmers, pan, etc. These things cause issues in check sequence in that they get alerted as being overlaps. Well, yeah, they're overlapping. You're overlapping the moving head 1, channel 8, moving head 2, channel 8, 3, channel 8. Now, we have this moving head shadow model pan where you could put it what shadow what model you're trying to shadow, but this one is really shadowing 8 different props. We don't have the ability to do that. So we just simply eliminated that being flagged in xLights in the check sequence. Because if we know that you've got multiple shadow models in here, we know that it's intentionally overlapping. So no need to flag it in check sequence. Okay. Um, Add right click, find, and replace in the timing tracks. So this is often done for fixing up some slang words or some words that just aren't found. I would not recommend using it on phonemes, but just on fixing words. Or perhaps there's a word that is it's an English word. Perhaps it's a name that that isn't found in the dictionary, and you just want to replace that word all the time with a sound-alike word. And let's go T, 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 and T, and T. And I'm going to shift double click and I'm going to say word, right? Maybe there's a lyric out there that's using word as a really cool gangster way of saying it. And if you try and break down that word, it's not going to find it. So you're going to be right click. You're going to say find. I want to find word. Click OK. And it's going to find it. Right click. You can find the next one, or you can replace it. You're going to enter the replacement text, and I'm going to say word. Click OK. And it replaced it with word. And if I right click, reset zoom, um, what did I do? All right, I'm gonna have to investigate that. Oh, there it is. Why is it? It's not going. Oh, I'm not going back. There we go. So it replaced all the words. I guess what's happening is it's zooming to the last one that it replaced, which could be good or bad, but depends if you had more text over here. It would still look good. Anyway, so it's a way to quickly replace text. I wouldn't think you'd want to replace phonemes, and you probably wouldn't even want to replace the shimmer ones with, all changing etc to etc/shimmer, for example. That's just too wild card. I would think it's to be used to replace slang or shortcut words. Sometimes you see the word nothing, nothing like that, because that's looks cool in the lyrics, but it won't work in xLight. So that would be a good place to do a find and look for nothing, and then replace it with nothing. All right, so that's all it is. So it's nothing more, nothing less. Haha. For replacing words like that. Don't mark universe per string. Controller's dirty. So what happens if you have a controller, and I don't know if I really have one. If I go back to this guy and I make it a Hinks Picks, this is pretty specific. I think it's pretty specific to Hinks Picks controllers. They have a a request to have universe per string. There you go. So if you had universe per string, um, that would force a save every time you open xLights, even if you didn't touch anything. So that was a little confusing to the users. They're like, I didn't change anything. Why do you want me to save all the time? Well, there was just a little issue there where it would mark it as being, we call it dirty, and it would say you need to save. But so we've eliminated that on the load. It never hurts to save. It's just you're just confusing as to why you're being asked to save. It's just a quirk in how universe per string was being handled. Add ability to import color palettes. If you saw my xLights bonus gem on AI and color palettes, you saw me demonstrate this one. If I go to the sequencer, we've added a new menu here. Unfortunately, on the Windows side, it's got this weird looking symbol. That'll be changed in the next release. We're going to get back to the hamburger menu. It should look at three triple lines. It's going to replace what used to be the update button, and there used to be a save button and a delete button. Now they're all in this one menu, and you can see what they are. So I'm going to demonstrate the import palette here. And this is where you could pull in something from AI, but even if you didn't have AI, you could come in here and say, I know my code I want is FF00FF. That would replace just the first box. If you want to replace the second box, we would just add another one. 666666. And if you wanted to skip one, you could skip one and put an extra comma and go 888888. Remember, it's going to be hex values. So you're going to have the hex for R, G, and B. So you're going to be 246 hex values in there. Often you'll see that in many utilities. So I'm telling it to replace the first, second, skip the third, and replace the fourth box in the color palette. Click OK. And there you go. You can see that when I highlight it, says FF00FF. That one says 6666. We didn't touch that one, and we replaced that one. Note that it doesn't change anything with the check marks. It just replaces the color of the current color palette. So just to quickly recap what these mean. Update palette means it would update the palette of all the effects currently selected. So if I had on, and I turn off the timing tracks, note that I'm not in a master view, so I can have multiple timing tracks selected. That's the only way you can have multiple selected. And I have all these four effects change. If I was to choose the update palette, the palette would all change to these colors, these check marks, which is dangerous because you maybe don't want to change the check marks on each of these. You may just want to change the color palette, in which case you should use the edit color replace as a different option. But if you wanted to update the check marks and the colors and every setting down here, you would say update palette. This is very similar to the update button you would see over in effect settings. And I think it's over in a couple of, maybe it's only in the effect settings, where it would update everything selected to these values. So that's what that does. Save palette will add this current color combination to the palettes that are in this dropdown. It'll just find the next empty slot. So it'd be called palette 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. Or you can give it a name. Maybe you want to call it Disney, or you want to call it my test palette, whatever. You can do that. And if it is already saved, you can delete it from the list. Now, these palettes are stored on your operating system in your file folder, in your show folder. So you can actually share them if you want. Trade them with your friends. If you create some palettes, you can always paste them up on Facebook, and like I said, share them just like presets. Okay, so that's what that does. So be aware, the buttons are gone. It's all in this this really quirky looking button thing. It looks like an A with smoke coming out of its head. Yeah. Scott is doing some stuff with AI. Again, not much you can see yet as an end user. Olama is a tool, or is a AI engine, large language model that you can run locally on your machine. So that way, if we come up with any cool things with xLights to use AI with, potentially you don't have to pay things for it. You can just use your Olama install. And the way that's being handled now is under File, Preferences. So again, advanced users, if this really gets you interested, you can come in here and you can put in your credentials. So before there was a ChatGPT token, where if you purchase credits on ChatGPT, you could enable that with the enable button. Or if you're running Olama on your local machine, which I am, you could put a check mark in there. You give it the host and the web address that is the port for it, which is by default 11434. And you can tell it which model it's using. Again, this is advanced stuff. It at this point it's not really hooked up to anything in xLights. We're just making the ability to get to it. I personally found that I had to turn off HTTPS for my testing. There is a test button here. I realized afterwards that you do have to come in here and select which one you're testing. Otherwise, there's no feedback. It just says it just doesn't do anything. So I found that I had to do that. And when I did that, it does run. It's slow, probably because my PC, but I can see in the background on my Olama instance that it is actually querying Olama right now and saying hello, basically hello world to my Olama instance. I think if I look down here, you can see Olama is running for me, and eventually it will come back. Takes roughly a minute. It's got to wake up. Olama says, "Oh, hi, how are you doing?" And it's going to respond back with this: service Olama is valid. So it did get a valid response. If it's not working, sometimes you just get nothing back. It'll just say service is, doesn't really say yes or no, but you should expect to see is valid if it is indeed working. Okay, so a couple of things. If you want to play with this, if you're into this sort of thing, make sure you choose the drop down, hit the test. That's all it's doing right now. It is not hooked up to anything else within xLights. Dan made some uh, behind the scenes changes. So we updated ISPC and the WX widgets codes. Those two things, ISPC is what we're using behind the scenes to speed up xLights. It's like multi-threaded code that runs across Windows, Mac, and I believe Linux as well. So we're just getting the latest release of that. Ideally, we're not going to see any issues with it, but if we do, it'd be with layering, butterfly effect, off the top of my head, plasma, I think, video effect. So be on the lookout for something quirks with that, but I don't expect to be any quirks with that. WX Widgets is the software that we use to make all these GUI boxes and drop downs and such. So if there's any quirks with that, keep an eye out and let us know if you see anything with that. We always try to keep somewhat up to date, so we're just keep moving along. Ensure state number is in the proper render order. This is something that most people would not have noticed and we wouldn't have run into, but we did have one case that brought it to light. So I just want to show you what we're talking about here. And I'm going to go to my states. I don't remember where I created states, but let's go here and states. Click on this guy. All right, so this is one here. Um, okay, yeah, good enough. Um, One would have thought, looking at this, that these would have rendered in this order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 through 15. But in fact, what was rendering, it was rendering in alphabetical order. So 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, etc. Then coming back to 2, 20, 21, 22, 23. It was based on the first character. So if there was an issue with you wanted something to render numerically, it wasn't being honored. So we've just gone and made sure that that's what it's going to render exactly the way you'd expect it in a version. So when people are creating these states, they know that if they are trying to layer on the values, that it will be respected going forward in case of moving it around. Again, very edge case. We just somebody brought it to our attention, so we addressed it. Pierre, correct effect movement with dragging a selection box. This was not sure I understood it, but it had something to do with what was scrolled off the screen. And if you selected this, it wasn't grabbing the right rows. So he's done a check there. I personally never ran into it. So it must have been, again, we're talking edge cases here most of the time. Crash when discovering Falcon V4, V5. We found that if you had a Falcon version 4 or version 5 that was set up in DDP mode, if you use the discover button, it would crash xLights. So we've gone ahead and made a change to that so it won't crash. It will assume that it was in DDP mode. If it wasn't, there's no reason why you wouldn't run in DDP mode, especially with the new Falcons. So it was just how it was being discovered. And you feel free to change it if you like, but it's going to flag it as DDP now, so it doesn't crash. Add editor right-click options to the state dialog. Oh, states, it's all about states, this one here. So go back to layout, go back to the spinner, and This is the version all about states, I guess. So we've added a new right-click option that you can insert a line before or move things up. So if I click on this guy and I want to move the selected item up, it moves up. If I want to remove it in, I want to move it down. And there you go. Sort by state would it would take an entry, like say if I had another one here, and it would sort the one up to that line there and just to regroup it. It's more like regrouping it, but it's sorting it, and it will retain the order. So this line here will be above this line here. These options for um, inserting a line before, they're a little slower, but they do work. It's having to redo all 200 lines. So it does take a moment on my slow PC, but it eventually will move. There we go. And it adds a line above and below. It's interesting that, just the way it works is you can move one up because it's only doing a swap, whereas the other way it's having to go down and process all 200 options below. Okay. Um, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. So if you find any issues, be sure and log them for us, especially if you can duplicate the issues and you go to help, issue tracker, and you can help improve the next version of xLights. I think we're getting pretty well, we're already very stable. And we're just trying to pick off some of these requests that's coming through. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and be sure and like and subscribe and all that stuff. And see you in the Zoom room. Don't forget our Wednesday night classes are 8 p.m. Eastern. And I think we have at least a couple more months of those classes to go. And yeah, have a great day. Bye now.